Thank you. Senator Cassidy.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks to all the uh, witnesses. I think there's a common theme that I'm hearing from you, which is you kind of meet the worker where she or he is, and meeting them there, you work with the employer. Let me just go right back at Bob Casey. I think that is the purpose of our Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. There's an article I've seen from a woman in an article from the Cincinnati Enquirer, so obviously applies to Kentucky, of someone in Kentucky, a police officer who was pregnant, and she couldn't get the lighter duty that was available in her late pregnancy, even though it was available because of rigid work laws. And so if we're going to increase opportunity for people, there has to be a certain flexibility. It has to be meeting the worker where she is or he is in a case of not related to pregnancy. So Bob, thanks very much for doing that. And hopefully our preaching on the issue will get it passed. So thank you. Um, and then also related to that, which all of you seem to speak to, but nobody speaks to directly. I want to make a pitch for something else I'm working on with Senator Warren, the College Transparency Act, which would allow an individual, when she or he is deciding where to go to school, to have easily accessible and understanding information as to how much she or he would have to borrow in order to complete a curriculum in that major at that school and what their earning potential would be afterwards. I say that because commonly I see billboards of pretty and handsome young men and women going to some university, so kind of online training or whatever. I know they're borrowing a heck of a lot of money, but I can look at the professions that they are promoting, and they're not going to make enough to pay back those loans. And if they draw down their Pell, it's going to be a huge opportunity cost. Instead of being able to apply all this money to a course of study that would really give them a career for the future, they're going to end up earning something at minimum wage plus tips, hoping that that ends up meeting needs. Again, that's our College Transparency Act. And just so I know that I'm not kind of assuming that you would agree, Mr. Gerard Freeman, let me just ask. I'm from Baton Rouge. We have, unfortunately, a lot of poor folks. I'm glad we have our folks, but I'm sorry that they're poor. And you spoke to them so well. I almost feel like this is a bait and switch. You spoke about helping people get through their high school. Here we have something to help them get through their college, but oftentimes the money ends up wasted because they choose a curriculum which is not going to be profitable for them. Any thoughts on that in general, and perhaps particularly on the goal of something like the College Transparency Act?
Well, thank you so much for the question. Yes, we believe that the kind of transparency that you are describing is essential to really fixing the issue that we've all talked about today, and that is getting people off the sidelines and back into the workforce. And that presumes getting them back into positions in the workforce that will provide for both economic stability and economic mobility. People can't make good decisions without good data. And I think what you're talking about is improving the quality of data available to Americans.
Yes, ma'am. And Mr. Beard, I once went to a place in South Louisiana, and the guy said, I need a master welder. I don't need a sociologist. But if I got a master welder, the guy's going to make 80K a year before we get to overtime. And so, again, this is all about competitiveness. How do we make it competitive for that individual to get a better job? But also, how do we, in the aggregate, make our country more competitive, providing jobs for those people? Any thoughts about the transparency required so someone would choose that which would be better for their future earning potential as opposed to that which seems attractive on a billboard?
We would wholeheartedly agree, Senator. First, we think about it as credentials of value, which means a credential has an intended purpose and you can finance it the way you were describing, that it isn't an undue burden once you leave. And so that requires the information that's there. The state of Texas is partnering with the U.S. Chamber Foundation as part of its job employment data exchange to get the kind of data that would be necessary for that transparency to show someone who had completed a degree what they're making using enhanced unemployment insurance reporting. In addition, we think performance-based approaches strengthen that approach, and you can see it done in multiple different ways. In terms of here in Texas, there's the Texas State Technical College that basically is funded because its workforce outcomes are the basis for the appropriation from the legislature. And finally, the U.S. Chamber Foundation is also working on talent finance to begin to align employment outcomes, employer interest, and education to actually produce those outcomes.
Yeah, that's thank you all. Again, I just feel like each of you is meeting the worker where she or he is. And I just learned in my experience, I'm a doctor, you got to meet the patient, you got to meet the individual where they are, not where you expect them to be. So thank you for that. And thank you for, I'm going to take it as a ringing endorsement for my College Transparency Act. Thank you all. I yield back.
Thank you.